That's it. Done.
It's the intro.
Good job, Rich.
I like
Wrap it up. This one's there.
All right. I love it.
So this, I think, as we think about it, Haggai, so I was just going in.
I like
Go
it.
for it.
You gotta just however you pronounce it, you just have to own it.
Oh, I was just.
Oh, I thought
we were
pronunciation.
I thought you were going to
The
talk
awkward.
about
No,
it being cold and.
no, that's okay.
Okay.
We can go
Falling
in.
down and stuff.
I haven't fallen down.
I think the thing that we're bringing into the context this week is that this letter, it can be, you can go from Jeremiah's prophetic word that you're going to go back, and then Ezra's, that's moment where King Cyrus allows them to go back to rebuild the temple. And then just in the verse of the day type of reading, you go, and then Haggai, we jump into this, and it's easy to dismiss that there was
A long
time.
Long time.
And so if you ask a 14-year-old how long 20 years is, they go,
That's like a lifetime for
yeah,
them.
when you're your age, 20 years isn't that.
What? I still feel like it's a long time.
No, it is. 20 years is a long time. And so this letter picks up in a moment when they were back in Jerusalem and a long time.
A long time. But like, I think the long time, like, cause it stopped. So they came in, they built the altar, they built the foundation right away. Like that happened immediately. And then they had conversations with neighbors, and the neighbors wanted to help and they said no. And that made the neighbors mad. And so then they wrote some letters. And
There's
stopped the whole
even,
thing.
I mean, the complexity of that, and that becomes beautiful in the Gospels, is that it was the Samaritans.
Mhm.
They have some different naming, I guess, in Ezra 4. 4 and 5 is where it really hits the pages. But yeah, the Samaritans come to them. The foundations are built. They've offered some sacrifices on the altar, and they come and say, "We worship
The
same God.
Yeah.
Can we help you build the temple?" And there's a lot of complexity into their saying no, but because they said no, this is our job.
Yeah.
And
maybe not as nice as that. I don't know. The words that I read they didn't feel that friendly.
No.
You idiots.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
And then they made it their job from, hey, offering to help, to their job was to stop them.
Yeah. And I think too, like the way, like in it says they were forced to stop. Like it wasn't like somebody just came and said, hey, stop. No, they were forced to stop.
Yep.
And
they were chaotic for a little while, and then when you get into the end of chapter 5, it says that, and then they were forced to stop.
Yeah.
And so last week when the first words of this prophet Haggai is to say, some of you are saying it's not yet time to rebuild the temple.
Yeah.
And it's easy to have a moment, wow, they've really missed the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's easy, and some of you, you're making your houses ornate. And now the thing that we focused on last week is this recurring phrase that happens in this book of saying, give careful thought to your ways. And now we're building a little bit bigger into the picture of this, is that, so 20 years ago, they were forced to stop.
Yeah.
And now, you read down to the end of chapter 1, all of a sudden they receive this word from the prophet Haggai, and the same leader goes, let's go. We're going for it.
Yeah.
And I think, you can idolize a moment and you go, wow, they were messing things up, and then God nudged, led, spoke something in their life, and they leaped into action and really dismissed the whole backstory of it. And they were on the bench for 20 years. Yeah.
They wanted to do this. Like it wasn't, I mean, they came here to do this. This is why they're here. So it's like their response to let's go. It feels like, like this is what we wanted to do all along. And I think fear got in the way. And I don't know, like it seems like being forced to stop when you're at the beginning of something and it's still new, and then someone comes in and forces you to stop. That might feel like if you're living in this way where you're waiting for God to lead you, or, you know, maybe that feels like God saying, okay, pause, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know. But,
Yeah.
or the fear, just the fear alone.
Well, at minimum, there was, well, how does time, you can call it on the bench, or time not doing what you're passionate about, or time away from what you gave a lot of energy and effort to something, and then a lifetime is away from that. You know, I think it's good to think about, you know, what is the impact of that time?
For the people,
You.
for me specifically, I think it's really easy to let your passions quiet down a little bit. Like, I think there's things I've been excited about, and then you kind of come into opposition, and something, you know, big happens and kind of takes you off the path. It's easy for me, maybe it's easy for those passions to not necessarily go away, but kind of sit at the back of your mind and just be quieter for a little bit.
I think you've talked about, it's apples and oranges, but, you know, you being away from ministry isn't the right word, but, you know, but now this moment of being back on a pastoral team.
Well, I think one of the things that, and then I was just thinking about this, is that after a while you start to doubt, like,
Wow.
you're like, can I do this again?
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, you know, you sit on pause long enough, and you're like, man, do I have the ability to do it? Because you're not in there. You're passionate about it, but then you just get, and you're like, okay, well, maybe I can't hack it if I try it again, which is kind of a weird thing.
Yeah, but man, I think that's so available in every situation, right?
Yeah.
I think that's like a trap to get you to quit to some degree.
Yeah.
Because I also think that when you have this idea or this thing, or God, you feel like God's doing something, and then you don't see it happen, it's easy to disconnect from that.
Yeah.
But also, I've had so many moments in my life where where God does something, and you go, "Oh, that's not what I thought this would be like. It's not what I thought this would look like."
Right.
I think a lot of kids that are in college to be in ministry someday, they will have a moment where they go, "Oh, this isn't what I thought it was.
This line isn't quite as clear. I thought I'd graduate."
Well, I think even if it is, I think sometimes
that's true.
we don't. We just are with our inability to fully comprehend what God's doing. I grew up in a church, a large church, mega church, very professional. Everyone's hired to do everything.
Yeah.
That's what and when I went to ministry school, that was the only thing I knew about church and ministry. And so that's what I thought it was going to look like forever.
Yep.
And then you go, "Oh, I guess I'm supposed to help with church plants. Oh, I guess there's no money in that. Oh, I guess," and then, you know, you end up looking back and you're like, "Oh, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." And also the path to get here didn't look anything like I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of times I find it's better than what I would have planned, but it sure isn't the same.
That's what I was going to say. Is a lot of times I go, "This is different. It's so much better."
Yeah.
Because my brain's not God's brain. So.
The complexity of path, though. I mean, that's, if you rewind back to Ezra. Ezra has some pretty remarkable moments, and one of them, as they've built the foundations, as they're making sacrifice, it gives this brief picture to people were so excited that the temple was coming up out of the ground. They were cheering as hard as they could, and then the older people who had seen the old temple were weeping. I'm like, what is happening here? And what is the perspective is that they knew that it was never going to compare to what was.
Right.
And but they were being drowned out by the celebration of what was, people were like, "This is the best thing ever." And again, I think that, that wasn't a moment. There's, in fact, in the book that we're in, the complexity of this is going to hit the surface as we go to chapter 2. But The difference of what you had hoped for or planned is this is not a new thing. This has been part of human history, and in relationship with God is that like the picture that would have been beautiful is Abraham receives this covenant. You are to be a blessing to all people. You're going to be a great nation in order to be a blessing to all people. And they did it. Great. And it's you rewind all the way back to the beginning with Abraham. This biblical narrative through and through has been like, if there is a theme, it's like, well, that wasn't what we had hoped for.
So that's not what
I think my path, like just thinking personally again, like my path is probably zig and zags more than most people even. But I think that with that, like there's so much learning that has to happen. And like even in their experiences in those, because like what would have happened if, you know, they forced him to stop and they were like, no, we're not going to stop. Because like the letter came from the king to say stop. And like, and they pushed through, like, what would that have looked like? Like it might have been pretty messy. But like that our paths, like when I feel like I go this way, when I think I'm gonna go this way and I go left and right, and like just the lessons in life that I learned on those paths, like they're so important.
Well, I think it's also like God's perspective so big. Like I view it like, I don't know if you've looked at like any sort of chart. I was thinking of stock charts for some reason, but like if you zoom into like, you know, the last month or something, there's all these zigzags in it. But then you zoom out from that and it's way straighter of a line. And there's this way straighter trajectory. And I have to think like we are so microcosm of our moment in time. And even the last like year, you feel like we had all these zigs and zags and all this stuff, and God's like up there with this huger perspective. Being like, you're going right along the right trajectory. You're going the right way.
That's very mature and beautiful to say that, you know, all these things I need to learn. And my prayer is, listen, whatever I need to learn, I'll learn it. Enough. Just tell me what I need to learn. Leave me alone.
You don't want to leave me
I know. Listen, I'll learn it.
learn it.
Stop. And
I think in this section of scripture that we're talking about today, in like verses 12 through 15, so I feel like Zerubbabel and Joshua and the priest and the remnant, they all obey. And then the next, in verse 13, God says, I am with you. And then he stirs them up and gives them energy and excitement or joy. And I feel like they respond and God's like, okay, you've responded and you're not alone and I'm doing this for you. And I feel like, I don't know, it's just interesting to say, like, watch the responses. Like, hey, guy comes in, says you have to do it. Like, it's time. You said it's not time. It's time. You've been through this. Like, you know, you feel like you're not blessed. But it's time to get back on the path. And then God responds to their obedience. And I love that. Like, I love that I am with you. You're not alone in this. This isn't you by yourself. Even if the temple doesn't look like you expect it to look, and even if things still don't turn out the way you think they're going to turn out, like, I'm with you. And here, not only am I with you, but I'm going to give you some excitement. I'm going to stir you up. I'm going to energize you to do what I've called you to do, which I'm like, Jesus, please give me the energy to do what,
The thing in that, though, is that you just go pre-exile. You're like, wow, this isn't working out. Taken into exile, 70 years, this isn't working out. The back, that didn't work out. 20 years later, and now, again, you bring up that God was fueling them, and immediately in that for me, I went to Jesus in Matthew chapter 11. It's so cool. And sometimes you just hear these verses too much and you just don't get it. But he's in the midst of his interaction with religious authorities and nobodies. He has this moment where he goes, wow, the unlearned, the marginalized, they're getting it, and they're grabbing onto it, and the smart, the brilliant, the leaders are not. And from that declaration, he says, you know, the Father knows the Son and the Son knows the Father. And then he says, all right, all of you, come to me who are drowning, heavy
Yeah.
burdened, and I'll give you rest. And take on my yoke. And it's again, in a agricultural culture, this was the tool used to hook an ox onto a cart
Mhm.
or an implement or whatever it was. And so take on this yoke, take on this mantle, this hook, and learn from me. So be connected to me, learn from me. I'm gentle, humble in heart, and you'll find rest for your souls.
Yeah.
My burden is easy. My burden is light. Come on. And talk about, you know, this is speaking to a group of people that their number one, like at the very close to the top of who they were, is that they were marginalized and
Mhm.
oppressed. And come to me. And I think that's what's beautiful that's happening in this. The prophet says, it's time, let's
Yeah.
go. 20 years of being on the bench, and then it's like kind of jolting. They go, here we go. They were all in unity. They went for it, and God invigorated them, and they charge forward. And I think that for us, it's so easy to go, well, that's something for somebody else. But here, in a moment when you feel like you would be the most neglected or broken or impossible situation, you know, to hear Jesus' words, come to me.
Yeah.
Come to me. You have a history of immediately 20 years of being on the bench, and then ancestrally you have 70 years of being in exile, and backing up from that you have centuries of falling farther and farther away, and then from back to Abraham, where it didn't really. All of these things are pushing towards the broken, and from that Jesus is going, here we go. You can do it. Come with me.
I feel like whenever I hear that verse, I automatically go, how? Not how, but like just, well, kind of like,
Mm.
like none of this feels light, you know?
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Oh, you got it.
I don't
Lean
wanna.
into it.
I'm okay. I'm not crying on the podcast today, at least. Okay, I did it. I got through. But it doesn't, well, you know, don't look at it like that. It doesn't, like, you hear this and it's like they're building a temple. Like, it doesn't feel light, you know?
Yep.
And so when I read it, not that, like, I don't believe it, but I also go, what does that mean? You know? And so that's for you. I'm throwing it back at you because I can't talk anymore.
Again, to the project that they had at hand was way beyond their ability and resources and capability. And then I come back to us as we are, you know, literally us. Our call is to build up the dwelling place of God, to build into the church. And it's so easy to go, this is impossible.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, it's, you know, get it in our minds that it's all our responsibility.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like, you know, God's just saying, okay, work the problem, you know,
Yeah.
work the next thing that comes up. And then after that, work the next thing that comes up, and just work the problem step by step by step. We're not responsible for, you know, building Notre Dame Cathedral in like a year, you know.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, work on this, and then this, and then this, and then this. And he's concerned about us doing the little steps because he knows we can't, you know, do the whole thing.
Right.
But he's like, I've equipped you to do these things. Just do those.
In partnership with him.
100%.
Yeah. Because when I go, I can go to pace or to busyness or go to all these different things and just go, I don't know. How much more can we,
Right.
you know, like, what is the fruit? And then to just hear Jesus's, like, his arm around your shoulder and come on, just believe me, walking with me is it's going to be easier than you expected. And okay, and then come with me. This burden, it's going to be light. And I think, like last week, we took a moment to stop and just go, all right, what does it mean to take to give some careful thought to your ways? And now here in this moment, if we could just take a moment to go, what is the all right? Time to get back on task, and to give space for that. It is a fake moment because you could look at a room of people and go, God has never said anything to these people, and I think that's pretty hopeless. That's that. But what if I think what a beautiful moment to say, I want to pile up faith and says that God has been working in all of us for a long time, and what are for each of us not to say. It's so easy to like monochromatic place that on people. God is telling us, but to trust what is Jesus calling you back to, and what is the impact when he says, hey, by the way, I'm going to help.
You gotta wrap up.
Well, the first thing, as we were kind of talking through the building the temple thing, first thing I think of is they keep running into permitting issues. That's the
Yeah.
It's like, well, they got that foundation, but then they have to stop because of permitting. But looking at, I think, the reframe in the mindset of right now, small, like this minute is going to look extreme. But in the long game, in the long walk, Jesus says that his yoke is easy and his burden is light, which means we still get to carry something, but it's going to be better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that looking at that, it's hard sometimes and that's why the roadblocks shift things for us so much is we get to that spot and we stop and go, well, in this moment, I can do nothing. That means it must be done. Like, I'm done. But then it's like, oh, but tomorrow, move on. Like, go. And I think that's so important. So zooming out and trying to see what God sees in his timeline is important. And I don't know if they can do it, but I think that's a call for us.
Or maybe even understanding that we can't.
Yeah.
Like just admitting that, okay.
Knowing it is.
Yeah. Knowing that God has better perspective, trying to see it his way, but to some degree going, I can't fully comprehend it.
Yeah, not
being
seeing
okay with
it,
that.
but understanding that it's there.
How are you going to make it easier? Why is your burden light?
Yep.
Doesn't feel light right now, but I guess I'll just keep going.
My box is full of rocks. Your box is full of sourdough. This is better. It gets lighter as you go.
See you guys next week.